Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I'm sitting here with the homie Dave. I've been playing around with his new game, LiquidLands, which is built off of his original game called CryptoCities, which was created and deployed in February of 2018. Dave has created a resurgence into the game and has been able to band a plethora of NFT communities into his game with the interoperability, and it's a lot of fun. It's an NFT strategy-based game, but I'll keep it at that because if I try to explain it, I'm probably going to butcher it. So we're going to bring on the genius, Dave. So welcome to the show.
Hardly the genius, just the dabbler. I just don't give up. That's all.
I mean, when you look at like the historical NFT community, there's a handful of people who have created an NFT project and kind of just let it be. And then there's others who just decide to do something completely different. You were able to build on top of it. And there's only a few people who have been able to deploy multiple contracts on top of the existing one. I think Ken from PixelMap and Pondaware with Mooncat. So I think that might make you third into the race. And all of these communities are actually participating in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, when I started to look at the whole sort of wrapping side of things a year ago, more than a year ago, I was sort of bombing around the archaeology community and speaking to different people. I posted a lot of questions like, how would you like this thing wrapped? And what's the best approach? And what should we do to wrap it and unwrap it? Because I knew I needed to upgrade these to ERC721, not so much to like bring them into the NFT hype, but more so that I actually needed them in the game. And as we'll talk about in the moment with the game, everything is 721 based. There's a reason we have 250 or approaching 300 projects integrated. It's because it's all one standard of 721. So I needed to get my own contracts up to that standard. And so, yeah, it was, I don't really know. I haven't really tracked how many people are doing it. I thought it was way more than that. I mean, I'm surprised if it's only sort of 2 or 3. I kind of got the impression it was quite common and a lot of people were doing it last year. But hey, I'm pleased to hear that. If
yeah,
I was early again, that's fine. That's good. I'll take it.
There's this very unique situation that you find yourself in, and it's caused a lot of animosity actually in the historical NFT community. It's do you preserve the asset and just have it as this piece of history, or do you try to take the historical significance and build on top of it, which could kind of diminish the value if it's not protected in a certain way, right? We saw this kind of happen with Ethereization, where the new wrap function wasn't the actual token that was underlying it because of the game that had to be disabled. And there's all these unique concepts and just ideas that are introduced to the pre-ERC721 contracts, because they're all customized at the end of the day. So they all have little niche issues with it. And for the historical collector, everyone has a different thesis on what's significant, what keeps the original token intact, what is the semantical debate between a token. And so it becomes this debate between the creator like yourself and the community, and what also is the utility. So I think you've done a pretty good job so far. I mean, the game is being used by a handful of people, and I haven't seen any issues raised on the way that you've enacted the original CryptoCities into the new game LiquidLands. But we'll dive into that in a second. We'll bring it back a little bit to, you mentioned about a year ago when you started poking around the historical NFT community. Was this because you were interested and you saw what was happening and you realized that you created a game in 2018 that might fit this scenario of these rediscovery and NFT archaeology? Or did one of the excavators reach out to you, which then brought the idea back into your mind?
No, it wasn't actually... No, I don't have a nice story about sort of being called on the golf course or something. And like, I don't know, Adam McBride or someone saying to me, hey, Dave, I've discovered your project. My project was actually always live, so it never died. CryptoCities has been running since 2018. I never killed it. It's been there the whole time. We've had sort of 100% uptime since we first started it. The Discord's been there the whole time. just kind of everybody left. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, you know, I built a thing in early 2018, and it started to, the whole space started to die with the ICO crash. And people started to leave, and I could see that I hadn't really built the game right. It wasn't fun enough. You know, it was cool. It was a crypto game. It was one of the first crypto games. So people were happy to have, you know, a game that they could play with. But it wasn't a fun game. You know what I mean? Like, it's still there. People can go try it. It's kind of, you try and control your territory around your city, and you got to capture it, and other people that are nearby can capture the same territory, and you're trying to compete for this gold. But after about a year of that, it gets a bit boring, you know? So I kind of realized, you know, I have to do something better, but the space was dead. People were leaving. I kept going back into the Discord. There was no one there for like a year or two. Eventually, to prevent spam, I kind of just paused the Discord for a while. And then about a year or two ago, I was like, you know what? Things are starting to pick up again. There's some activity here. Maybe NFTs aren't dead. And I started to think about it. And then I started to look around the Discords and have some discussions. And then I made the plunge, I want to say probably February last year. I was like, you know what? Let me resurrect this. Let me upgrade the contracts. Let's start with that. I'll just do the contract upgrade because I need to. I've been kind of thinking about it for a while. And I'll take it from there. I'll decide what to do thereafter. And so I did the contract upgrades. And then I was like, I'm going to build this game now. Like, I'm going to build it the way I want to build it. Like the vision that I had, and the resources and the features and countries and cities and land, I'm going to do it properly from the ground up. And that's really LiquidLands. So this is take two. This is the reboot. And yeah, the plan is to reuse all the assets. So nothing is thrown away. Everything's preserved. That's the beauty of blockchain. All the NFTs that are there, all the original tokens that are there, are preserved, and now we get to build a much better game around it, and that's really the goal.
Yeah, yes, it actually is. So here I pulled up the Twitter account. You can see created March 2018. I'm gonna pull up CryptoCities here on OpenC for a second. CryptoCities was developed in 2017 and launched officially February 2018 as one of the first playable NFTs. It was recently upgraded to ERC721. Hard limit of 25,000 cities was introduced. Only one NFT can exist any city in the real world, each carefully verified by its coordinates, rank, and size. So out of this right here, we see on OpenC, it says that there's 25,000 cities, but there's only 513.
No, that's the limit. So that's the hard cap. There's only 7,700 at the moment. So we haven't minted any more cities since 2018. So all these locations here are from the original discovery in 2018, mostly February, March, that time. But I decided, I thought, you know, supply should be, what I didn't like about the original contract was that you could kind of mint as many cities as we wanted. And so I thought to rectify that, the new ERC721 contract, I'd put a limit in it. So obviously 7,500 slots are reserved for the old tokens there that come into the new contract. But if we need to, we can go up to 25K. You know, maybe a lot, maybe not. I don't know. I think if the game grows the way I want it to grow, and if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of players, then I think it's probably sized right, you know. But to be honest, I don't really have any plans to mint any new cities at the moment. What I want to do is I want to fill in some of the gaps. So we have a lot of really small locations that aren't cities. They're barely even towns or villages. Then we have all the big cities already discovered, places like London and New York. But there's a whole sort of section of, you know, second and third tier cities in most countries, like maybe the third and fourth and fifth biggest city that haven't been discovered yet. So big places. And I'd like to get those into the game at some point, because I think people would really like to play with those, you know. So if you're in the UK, maybe you want to play with, Reading, which is the city nearest to me, which I don't even know if it's in the game. I don't think it is, you know, so.
Yeah, I pulled up right here the CryptoCities.net website, and it looks like that Moscow has the most original minted cities, and then Cairo, Alexandria.
Yeah, so those are the points. So what you see on the side there is just the points system. So when I launched CryptoCities, I created a points system for each city, roughly scaled to the population size. So you'll see there, Moscow is 50. All the big, well-known cities tend to be 50. Places like London, places like Paris, etc. All the big, there's a lot of 50s in China, a lot of big cities there. And then they go down in size all the way to size 1, which is the hovel down the road, with 2 houses on a street corner. And so there's literally, millions of locations that we've taken geolocation data for. And then we sized everything on this scale. And everybody had to start when this concept that I've got that I try and use is like almost creating like a whitelist out of play. It's like I want the assets to go to the people who want to play with them. I want the assets to go to the people that are going to use them. I don't just want people to come in and buy up all the best assets and sit on them. I know a lot of your audience might like that idea, but I actually want the stuff to go to the most passionate players. And so I used this concept originally with cities in that I wanted you to discover your 1-point location, and then you could discover a 2-point location, and then a 3-point, and it went up to 50. And a lot of players got to 50. So there was this race, to get to the 50s, to discover Madrid and Barcelona and all these wonderful places. And so that worked. That really gamified the discovery process, and it worked really well. And then once that discovery was over, that was part of the problem with the project, I think, is that it wasn't replaced by a fun enough game. And so a lot of people then just kind of sold off the small places they discovered along the way. Some people held their cities, some people made money, some people didn't. It needed a follow on. It needed a good game to come after it. And it's a respectable effort, but it's just not. It's not a fun game. It's not something that really pulls people together that I'm trying to create now with LiquidLands.
Yeah.
I use this concept in LiquidLands as well. So everything is around the sort of the most active players are the ones that earn the resources, which can then go and mint the power bricks and stuff in the new game. So similar concept.
Similar, and we'll go to LiquidLands here in a second, but LiquidLands seems much more simplistic on here. There's on CryptoCities, there's tons of different links that you go click on. It's like a barrage of information, and as you learn, people in crypto need it as simple as possible first, and then you can introduce more utilities on this. In this original creation, I'd like
to say I've learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Oh man, that's something that I try to explain to a lot of people too. Is that look, you got to go after the 80 IQ people first. That's how we're all 80 Q, and we could grow with it, and hopefully we could be right curvers at the end of the day. On here, it talks about earning in-game virtual gold. Was that virtual gold ever an ERC20 token that you could sell on a secondary market? It was only an in-house currency?
Yeah, no, it was just an in-game item, and I've been asked a million times to turn it into a token, and obviously I'm not going to do that. But no, not a token, and there probably won't be tokens in the new game either. So, I mean, we can talk a bit about that later, but that's just not what I'm building. I'm not building a tokenized game or a play to earn type game.
So the intention with CryptoCities was purely from a experimentation project that hopefully has a product for just entertainment and community building outside of just profit. As you mentioned, like you're trying to stay away from that play to earn. And this is just putting on your 2018 cap.
Yeah. So back in 2018. So originally, actually the original goal, what I wanted to do was I wanted to make like a a game primitive that other games would use. So I kind of bought into this idea of there's all these games and players don't own their assets. So how cool will it be if we could create a common platform, a common asset of cities, and we mint all the cities in the world and all the big towns, and other games can use them. And so if I own London, I can then go and use my London in every game that I'm playing, and I can create maps for London, and I can, if it's a strategy game, I can use that, use it in that. And I quickly learned that like no one was going to make games using our assets. We'd made the assets, but like no one, like we even made an API, like I put out an API, everything. And I realized like the game companies aren't going to use it. Why would they use it? I mean, they're not going to like give away their revenue, right? And so they weren't going to use it. Crypto games there weren't enough of them. They wanted to make their own assets. And so then I had to pivot it and realize, you know what, actually I have to make the game. And so that's what I started doing in late February and March. I started building the CryptoCities game. And it was always built, the whole vision of it, you're on the features there now. The whole vision of it was sort of like to be this Risk type game, or Civilization, if you ever played Civilization on the PC over the years. I really wanted to build this like technology tree that would be embedded in each location. Each location would have features. So each city would have features that you see there on the screen that would then determine what that city could produce down the line. And so not only would it be, contributing to the rarity of the place, but it would actually have not real world, I'd say game world consequences in terms of what you could make and what kind of buildings you could make and then sell, et cetera, et cetera. So a big vision, and probably not built right from the ground up with cities. And so when I've had a lot of time to think about it. When I got into this last year, I was like, I'm going to build this vision now, and I'm going to build it right, but I'm going to start with a world map. I'm going to start with a world map, break it up into countries, get a fun game going with that, harness the energy of communities, interop with as many different projects as possible, and then we'll take it down to the city layer. Like here, I almost try to start from the bottom up and, build the technology trees first and stuff. Now I'm starting from the top and going down. So the idea is to get into this and to bring cities into the game as actual playable locations with maps, to utilize the feature system that's being created for them, that's sitting there dormant at the moment, not being used. And that's the goal, really. It's a multi-year project. It's going to take as long as it needs to be built. Maybe it'll be ready by the next bull market. Who knows? And yeah, that's really what I'm busy with.
It's funny that you say that the game was inspired by Civilization. And Risk, the creator of Etherization, which is also a NFT strategy game that was created in 2016, said that he was inspired by Civilization. So it seems that a lot of the early NFT strategy games were people who were just interested in strategy. It's quite. I
think it's a phenomenal game, Civilization. You know what? I actually haven't played it in years. My wife still plays it, strangely enough, but I'm too busy building this game. But I love the depth of it. I love the fact that it can be a quick and easy game if you just want to like fight, or it can become really nuanced around alliances and technology races, etc. And I thought, blockchain is perfect for this. Like you can create these assets to represent different parts of the game state that can last for years. The whole game can be played over decades and can evolve. And, you can take snapshots of it, and you can look back in 20 years' time, we could look back at, what did the city look like in 2022? What did it look like in 2023? And as it got built out, and as new players came in, and maybe someone else bought that city and then started doing enhancements to it, and then someone else built it, built things in it, and it interacted with other cities and other players and other projects, and that fascinates me. The fact that you can create this meta structure that can last, kind of what I suppose in the historical space, we talk. Well, I'm not hugely educated on the whole historical space, but people talk about these value items and value metrics to these different collections, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to build, is not just perceived value, but actually sort of real game state, real value state that's there that people interact with in this game, in another game, whatever. And it's an amazing space because you now have an NFT that can be part of my game, and at the same time it can be part of another game. One day the two games could link up and some of that state could flow through from one game to the other. So it's really interesting. And I have no idea how the space is going to evolve. No one does, but it's the most interesting thing to be building at the moment.
And now you find yourself in a unique situation. When you created this, I want to note that this is before Axie Infinity contract was ever deployed. So the idea of a play and earned wasn't, maybe was still conceptual. It hadn't been attempted at the idea. Also, CryptoCities back then, not many NFTs really existed. So now the new fold and layer that's on top of LiquidLands that you've done a really good job of is introducing NFT communities that can team together and kind of form these factions, and then they can form with other NFT communities. And the only other NFT project that I really see anything similar to this, where you're allowing any NFT community to participate with their own assets, is World Wide Web that I'm familiar with, at least. So you start to see these like the internet culture or internet pockets of the NFT community really finding their own and teaming together through the blockchain, with sometimes not even having to speak verbally or textually through chat rooms. To me, that's what I found most fascinating when I come here onto this game, is right here, as now I have LiquidLands pulled up. You can see these different NFT communities that are all the same color, kind of protecting their area, but now they act on behalf of the community when you go and attack them, and none of them have to even say a word to each other. It's just straight interactions through the blockchain.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I should be clear that the game itself is not on the blockchain. So the whole game is played off chain. The live game state with the map and everything is off chain, but everything gets almost in a way synchronized to the chain in terms of when people are actually minting their assets. So they're using their on-chain assets, they're using their NFTs that they already have from other projects. As they progress in the game and they earn what we call raw bricks, which is the main resource that is harvested in the game, they can then turn those into other items, which are then minted to the chain. So they're preserved. And so I think that's important, because I think there are a lot of crypto games that are going to go down the path of everything being on chain, and that's fine. It's a good experiment to run. I mean, this is an experiment. On-chain games are an experiment. I think there's a lot of friction to that model. There's a lot of friction to having to sign a transaction every time you want to do something in a game. Yes, you could delegate some of that stuff, and you can use other chains and layer twos, and there are some approaches there, but I think the more you take away those steps, the more sort of centralized you become again. This is a centralized game. My model is to say, I want to remove all the friction of the gameplay. I want everything. I don't want anybody to have to fire a transaction to play the game. Yes, I want you to sign a message so I know it's you, but I'm not going to send that to the chain. And then when you want to do stuff, you could play for a month, you could play for 3 months. Maybe you've got something you want to turn into a real asset that you've earned in the game. You can then go and fire off that mint transaction and put it into an asset. And that's the model I'm using, is to have this sort of totally off-chain, frictionless play, which I think, to be honest, is working. I think people like it. It's quick. They trust it a bit more. They're not having to constantly sign things. I mean, there's a security issue with signing a lot of transactions, right? You know, it just takes one bad transaction to slip in and you've drained your wallet. It almost happened to me the other day. I clicked on a Google link, an ad at the top of a Google link, and I think I was going to Uniswap or something, and it was a phishing site, and it wanted permission to access any WETH in my wallet. I was like, that's odd. Like, I haven't even done anything here yet. Why are they doing that? And then I realized it was a phishing site, and it was like a proper ad, like an approved ad on Google, you know? So it happens quickly, and I don't want people having to sign transactions all the time. I think it just creates a security risk. I want them to do that every now and then when needed to solidify their assets. Okay, I've played for a day or two, I've achieved some stuff, now I can write that to the chain, and it's stored forever. And now I've got that. If Dave makes a third game in 4 years' time, I'll still be able to use those assets and keep them, and they'll be there forever.
That makes complete sense. I've never thought about going just completely off-chain game, but utilizing on-chain assets. I think the difference here, and maybe you can clarify this, is that since there are no in-game tokenomics, since there's no ERC20 that's associated with the typical play and earn type game, there's not as much risk for users because it's purely entertainment and enjoyment, at least for now. Whereas when you introduce a ERC20 token, like for example, Axie Infinity, you need these on-chain transactions because now there's a financial compensation that's tied to every single interaction within the game. Is that kind of how you see it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's loads of consequences as soon as you put stuff on chain. I mean, there's obviously a legal and regulatory aspect to it that we don't know how some of the stuff is going to pan out in terms of the SEC and what they're going to classify some stuff. And is it a security? If I create a country and then that country starts to generate ERC20 tokens or harvest them, is that now a security? You know, it could be. So the point is, I want to stay away from that just myself. From a business development point of view, I want to stay away from that. But at the same time, I don't want the person that owns that country to be having to constantly fire off transactions to the blockchain to do anything, because then they've got to, you know what, I think we've got to move away from this model where we're constantly asking people to sign something in their wallet, because we desensitize people to it. If you sign 100 transactions a day, eventually you're not going to pay attention to one that you need to sign somewhere that you really do need to pay attention to. And so I think we have to minimize the amount of signing we do to stuff that's really important. And so, you know, that's my view of it. But at the same time, we have to preserve the assets. The important stuff, as the value is created in that gameplay or any product, so it doesn't have to be a game, we then have to write that ownership to the right person on chain. And I think we have to do it on a blockchain we trust is going to be around in 20 years time, 30 years time. And for me at the moment, that's Ethereum, to be honest. Maybe one or two others, and we're experimenting a little bit with Polygon. But I think, we have to also then think carefully around what blockchain is going to be around in future as well.
That's, yeah. If you believe in a multi-chain world, I think there will be a few, but when you think of just modern principles of usage, it's generally 20% of, it'll probably be like 20% of the blockchains will utilize 80% of the community or something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously Ethereum offers the most security, but then the idea becomes, if the throughput isn't fixed and layer twos become not as efficient as we want them to be, then what blockchain then becomes the settlement layer? A lot of people move and think Solana is that. Obviously, if it's going to be, or the transaction layer, I should say, right? You bridge over ETH, but then there's the whole idea of like bridging assets over, and we've already seen two multi-$100 million hacks happen on bridges. So yeah, it's all experiment, but I guess this is probably the good model to have until that is actually figured out. And that's a whole different situation. But I did bring up the factions, and I want you to walk me through how to play this. for myself, but also for everybody else. I've been playing, experimenting. I have some bricks, but I own a bunch of Mooncats, and I want Dave to take me through what would be the best strategy right now. I've got a bunch of Mooncats. For those that are watching, you could see that down here, all the white spots are where all the Mooncats are. Right here, they're mostly down in Australia. So from a strategy perspective, as somebody who has 40 Mooncats in this wallet, would the best practice to go down to Australia, or I think it's Oceania?
Well, I mean, let's take it a step back. Do you know what you're trying to achieve? Like, you know what the main goal of the game at the moment is to harvest raw bricks, right? Because then you can turn those into other assets over time. So maybe if you just click on a land tile quickly, any of those tiles, if you just zoom in, you just click on a portion of the map and then click on one of the tiles. What you'll see there is that land produces 0.121 bricks per day. Okay, so that's like the main resource in the game. Every bit of land produces raw bricks. And so your goal is to try and control as much land as possible and harvest those raw bricks every day. And then once you have a full raw brick or multiple, you can then turn them into on-chain assets. And at the moment, what we have is power bricks, which give you more attack and defense. So you can control more land or better producing land, because what you'll see is some of the land is really valuable and it's highly contested, whereas other land is not so valuable and it's a little bit easier to hold. So your goal then is really to find land that you feel you can hold and harvest in order to get these raw bricks, and then you can turn them into those on-chain assets. So you're lucky because you've got assets from a faction and a collection that's pretty active and sticks together. They don't attack each other very often. So if you go find some other Mooncats and you try and control some land near them, you're going to get a lot of protection. Not so much necessarily protection like they've got your back the whole time, but also other factions are less willing to attack a large clump or a large cluster of another faction, because they know that faction counterattacks very quickly. So your best bet is to look for land that's generating a decent amount of raw bricks. Australia is not a bad option, or Malaysia. I saw some in Malaysia as well with Mooncats on. And then try and capture some of that land and then hold it and harvest it every few hours. And then once you've done that, you can then turn that into power bricks. Or we're going to have some other game items coming along soon, which are not power bricks, but also use these raw bricks. And you can then turn it into that stuff as well.
What determines the amount of bricks that are produced per day per plot of land? Is it just is it determined by, let's just say, since United States is a world power, they produce it just because of how it's viewed, or is there a mechanic underneath this?
No, it's mainly the way I did it was I looked at firstly I started with an equal number. So I said, okay, each country gets whatever the number is, two raw bricks per day. Then I said, right, now I'm going to skew that slightly towards countries with more land. So if a country has 100 land, then maybe it's actually going to generate like 6, 7, 8 raw bricks a day. Then I'm going to divide that by the amount of land they've got. So actually what you end up with really small island nations might produce 1 to 2 raw bricks a day, but really big countries like Canada or the US might produce, say, 10 to 20 raw bricks a day, but it is spread out over much more land. So actually, if you were just going to pick one land tile to harvest, you should go find an island nation or a nation state somewhere like Monaco or Malta or somewhere where there's only one land tile. But if you can control a large amount of land, then it might be better off to go and try and control the whole of Malaysia or something. You'd probably make more in a day. But I must say it's a dynamic system as well, because we're opening up realms, and realms are where if you go down, you'll see Gibraltar in the Mediterranean. If you click on that tile, if you go down into Europe, look at the Mediterranean, you'll see there's some in fact, anyone you can pick on Sri Lanka as well.
What's that like right here?
You go down to that's your geography, man.
I'm terrible. Sorry.
You look at India, the big green. So below India, there's that funny tile that's got like some dots on it. If you just zoom in there, you zoom in a bit with your mouse wheel, and click on that one at the bottom there, and you'll see how that opens up into more land. So that's kind of the idea, is that a lot of these smaller places are going to actually produce more raw bricks over time, because that whole land tile now produces, that one does 4.79 raw bricks a day, whereas before it might have only been 2 if it was one land tile. But every country will have these realms in it, so every country will produce more over time. So if people are trying to figure out which country, I want to buy a country, and what produces, how much share do I get? Because each country gets a share of the harvest as well. It's going to roughly all grow at the same amounts, just not all in one go, because I can only open one realm a day or every couple of days. And so one country might get one, and then another one might get one in, 3 months' time. And so it's not all at the same rate. And I'm not publishing those details. I'm not going to tell people what I'm going to do up front.
Keep the mystery of surprise.
Yeah.
Down here, it says the owner of Sri Lanka receives 10% of the harvested bricks from this land. So theoretically, this is just a theory. If I owned the Sri Lanka tile from CryptoCities, I would import it here, and then I would receive 10% of everything, all the bricks that are being produced here.
Yeah, so if you owned the country of Sri Lanka in the game, or from 2018, then you'll get 10% of the harvests that take place there. So at the moment, not all that land is enabled, so it's not producing 4.7 a day. And at the same time, 4.7 is the max. What tends to happen is a lot less gets harvested, because people attack before people can harvest. So there's an element of raiding, and there's an element of losing your harvest, and so it tends to be some fraction of that number as people attack and counterattack and harvest and whatever. But yeah, the 10% of whatever's harvested there then goes to the country owners. So some people are owning countries at the moment because they want to increase the amount of raw bricks they get each day, and then they can, put that back into attack and defense strength, for instance.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a suicide mission and just walk me through and see. Oh, so there I won one. So it's right here. For those that are listening, I'm in Sri Lanka. There's no moon-cats here. You had a 30% odds chance of winning. They had a defense advantage. Can you walk me through what is the algorithm that determines the 30% odds of winning?
So the defender always has the advantage. So to stop the land just churning continuously, which it already does, the defender always has the advantage. So if you're both equal, you both got no attack, no defense strength, you kind of you both started the game, whatever, then you will have probably about 30% chance of winning. The defender will have 70% chance of winning. And so it's kind of like a dice roll. You just click attack, and it happens in the game, and your odds are determined that way. And then if it's 30%, you've got to roll, imagine a dice with 100 sides, you've got to roll 31 or you got to roll, like 29 or 28 or whatever. You got to get within your odds to win. Now that odds system then changes based on a number of different factors. So as you build your strength in the game, and as you turn raw bricks into power bricks, you can also go and get these on OpenC, by the way, people that have already made these power bricks. You can add attack strength to your NFTs. And as you get attack strength, you get better odds in attacking. So if you can add like 20 attack or 30 attack or 40 attack, you can then start to swing those odds to like a 50% chance of winning or a 60% chance of winning. At the same time, the defender can add defense strength, so they can turn their raw bricks into power bricks with defense points. And so their odds get better. And so it's this constant sort of battle between what odds you can create for yourself in attacking, but then also to hold that land afterwards, what odds you have to hold it. And so you need defense strength to hold it. And then there's also an element of something we added to the game a while back called fatigue, which basically means that, you know, if you're just playing with your one wallet, you're never going to get fatigued. You're not going to do enough attacks in the day to get fatigued. You're just always going to get that 30% odds of winning. But if you start to try and play with multiple wallets and you like many multiple wallets, you will start to become fatigued. And so you'll go from like 30% chance of winning to 29 to 28 to 27. Eventually you'll have like 1% chance of winning when you attack a tile. So it just becomes impractical. And so that system is there to try and stop people from sort of brute forcing the game. You can play with multiple wallets. It's actually, the fatigue system is not structured on wallets. It's structured on the amount of attacks you do. So it doesn't care how many wallets you play with. It just cares how many attacks you do in a 12-hour period. And obviously, if you're using one wallet, you're never going to exceed your 30 attacks every 12 hours, which is what you get. We sort of give you 30 attacks every 12 hours. But if you're using more than one wallet, then you will exceed that 30. And so as you start to go to higher numbers of attacks each day, you then start to become fatigued.
That's quite interesting. So bricks are associated with your defense mechanism, and then power bricks are essentially, if you think about it, they're a product of proof of work, right? You basically go in and attack. I think of it,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to model it a little bit off like Bitcoin mining in a way. You know, I'm trying to say, well, let's imagine that playing the game is mining, you know, harvesting the raw bricks is mining, and it's easy at front in the beginning. You can do it with your PC. You can do it with the GPU, you know, then eventually you kind of need specialized hardware to do it, you know, but back in the day you could mine it quite easily with your machine. And so it's the same concept at the moment. Anybody can play it. Anybody can harvest these raw bricks. So it's easy mining. It's proof of work. It's proof of play. But over time, it's going to get harder and harder as players get more powerful. And for sure, when we have, you know, we've already had more than 1,000 players play the game. We've probably got about half that playing on a daily basis actively. I think, you know, when we get to a few thousand players actively playing it every day, it's going to become harder and harder to harvest raw bricks without investing in yourself. As you get these raw bricks yourself, you need to be adding to your strength and building your, you know, your alliances, your faction strength, deciding which faction you're going to play with. Like I play the game as well, just to test it out. I play pretty badly. I play with one wallet and I don't play as part of any faction, but I have a couple of like pieces that I can put into a faction, like a mooncat, etc. And it's way easier when I play. Like when I put that mooncat in the middle of a bunch of other mooncats, it's way easier. I can keep it for days. You know, it's hard as an individual player not being part of a faction. So I'm trying to develop all these different sort of meta layers to the game that people can invest in. And when I use the word invest in terms of invest in time, it doesn't have to be invest in money. It can be invest in time. It can be invest in money if you want to mint power bricks and things like this, or go buy them on the secondary market. You're looking at some of it now. But I want all these different meta layers to the game, which will give you an edge if you learn the strategy and you figure out how to maximize your odds the whole time with attack and defense.
I pulled up here Power Bricks Matte. Is this just the Polygon version of it?
That's
or is
the Polygon one, yeah. So there's two collections. One's in Ethereum and one's in Polygon.
Okay, correct. And then just so I have this correct, which looks at face value to be this right here with the sword and crosses is, I'm assuming, attack, and then the shield is defense.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be an entry power brick. So someone has minted that straight away after getting one raw brick. They've turned it into a power brick, and that's given them a bit more odds in the game. At the same time, the more power bricks you have, the more land you can control. So every player can control 10 land with their explorers. We call them explorers, but they're your NFTs basically. Now, some people have hundreds. Like, you've probably got quite a few mooncats, right? So
yeah,
you want to use all of them. You need power bricks, because you can't. Your span of control is 10, and then if you want to go to 11 and 12 and 13, you're going to need more power bricks to control more land.
Interesting. And so now I'm moving over to the countries. This to me seems like if you own a country, then you have a lot of power without actually having to go through the proof of play, because you're automatically yielding, was it 10% of the bricks per day?
Yeah. I mean, they give you the edge. I think you're going to struggle to outperform the active players in the game, or even keep up with them if you're not actually in there playing. But they give you an edge. That they allow you to get a few more raw bricks each day. But it's volatile, because it could be really quiet. We have maybe a quiet day and there's a lot of land, and some factions are doing something else that day and they're not attacking as much, and you get to harvest a lot. And then we get like 50 new players join in an hour, and suddenly there's just this churn of land. Everybody's trying to control land, and everybody's counterattacking. And you see it on the Discord. People are like, I can't keep any land today. It just keeps churning. I'm not getting any harvests done. And then as a country owner, you're not getting much harvest, because those harvests aren't happening, because there's too much conflict happening. So there's this abstract layer to it, which you have to. It's tempting to say, oh, I'll buy the countries, because I'll then get this passive stream of raw bricks. But you probably have to do more than that, to be honest.
Okay. And right now I pulled up the Malta within the countries. So if I buy Malta, it comes with, it's every single plot that's within it. You get 10%, correct?
So the land in the game, the land on the world map is not owned by anybody. Mm-hmm. It's not owned by the country. It's not owned by the country holders. It's not owned by the players that are on that land at the time defending it or attacking it. The land flows between players as they attack and defend it. But everybody gets a benefit from that land. The person attacking the land might get a raid. They might get some of the raw bricks out in a raid. So if they attack and they win, and you'll actually see that in your history. If you go look at if you click on the history tab that you have there with 40 next to it, and you click on all, you click on the all tab at the top, you'll see the land you captured, you got some raw bricks from that, 0.002995 at the top. So you actually got a raid there. So some of the raw bricks that hadn't been harvested yet, you got some of them. At the same time, the person that lost the land, they got some of the bricks that they lost, less than you probably. It would have been better had they just harvested the land a minute ago before you attacked them. They would have got a lot more out. So they get the benefit. And at the same time, when they're harvesting, the country owner gets some of the harvest out in that 10% share. Or if you own the world or a continent, you get a 1% share or a 0.1% share if you own the world. So there's this sort of flow of raw bricks, and the raw bricks are the resource into the system. And then that resource is needed to build everything else that we go forward with from here. So imagine in a year's time or 2 years' time, you own London and you're trying to build the Houses of Parliament in London in the game, and you need 50 raw bricks to do it, or 30 raw bricks. You can only get that from the game. You're not going to be able to buy the building. You're going to have to get the raw bricks to produce that building. So the game state and the amount of game there is will only grow as fast as the production of these bricks. At the moment, everybody's using them to build attack and defense. but that flow is going to change from attack and defense probably into these other items in the game and the other levels of as we go down into lower levels of the game. But we can only do that with players, so I'm not going to go to those levels until there's enough players to do it. There's no point in adding buildings and all this kind of stuff if we have 1,000 players. But if we have 100,000 players or 50,000 players, it's a different story. Then there'll be enough activity in a city to do that and enough feedback loops that we can create in the game.
It's quite fascinating. So as the users expand, then it gives you the ability to take the game to a more microscopic level. You get to go from the country level to, you get to go from the continent to the country to the city to the town to the whatever. So, and you kind of see this happening already with the countries, right? It's like, it looks like just like a little brick, and then you click on it and then it dives in even smaller and within these. So this then leads to an interesting point. So there's some that are empty here. And then when you go to the 2018 CryptoCities, they also look like little plots as well. Is that because these haven't been imported over, or is...
So I haven't brought those into the game yet. That's just art at the moment. So what's on the CryptoCities NFTs is just art. Don't read too much into what is opaque and what's transparent in the image. But what you can see in the image are the features of that location. So you can see that one location might have certain, I don't know if you go down to stats, I think it might be under stats. If you click on there, or if you click on levels, I'm not sure where all the metadata is there.
Yeah.
But just go to the top, just see what has that location got. It's actually not got anything. That's why there's no stats. If you pick one, if you pick like a bigger one, like pick one that's got a couple of things on it.
Oh, like this here. Let's go this one.
Yeah. So now if you go down to stats, you'll see it's got various different features. And so the plan is very much to build that into how the game evolves. So for instance, if you want to build a courthouse in your city, you'll need maybe government, or not government, maybe legal or something. Maybe if you want to build a mayor's office, you'll need government 1. If you want to build the Houses of Parliament, you need government 5, for instance. But the idea I have is that whatever your city has enables this technology tree for you that you can build. But at the same time, you can then go, it's kind of, you can't, like in real life, you can't build a building and then sell it to another city and like move that building to another city. But it's a game, and we can have it that if you build a structure in your city because you have the features to do it, you could then sell that NFT structure to someone else who could use it in their city. And that can create more levels of gameplay, more different types of ways of interacting. But at the same time, what I learned in 2018 is you've got to expand at the right pace. We're not ready for that. Like no one's ready for that. Everybody's just clicking tiles on a map because they want to represent their faction. The game is simple today. It's fun. There's like one level to it. And I'm not just going to take it to those levels for the sake of taking it to those levels. It has to grow into those levels if people are ready to receive it. And so that's really my idea. And that's why, for instance, on the world map that you see now, not all the land is enabled yet. It expands as players come into the game. And as the number of daily active players grows, the map grows. And that's why everybody knows we're not faking it, because they're getting attacked relentlessly, and they can see that the map is filling up. And we all know that there's hundreds and hundreds of players participating each day. So that's my concept, my idea. And it's a nice environment to build in, because I don't feel this pressure like I have to get all the features out now. I feel like I can take my time. I feel like I can take years to do this. And sorry for anybody that wants all that stuff today, but I'd rather be here in 4 years' time still building. And 99% of other projects probably won't still be here. But I want to do it at the pace that makes sense for the game and everybody is ready to receive it. And there's enough players that want to do it. because you can also play this, you can create this sort of partition play where maybe 90% of people play on this world map because they want to represent their factions. But actually there's someone that kind of wants to go back to those Sim City days where they built cities and they just want to build out their city, man. They don't care what's going on the world map. And so we can create these different levels of play where they can play unhindered and not affecting anybody else and still do these things in the game as well.
It's quite fascinating. And so this unique dynamic introduces us so many kind of ideas. So right now I have the CryptoCities 2018 OpenC page out. And in order, if we want to foreshadow the future, we actually can look at the past and look at the tabs that show all of the different features on a micro level. And so there's energy, commerce, religion, communications, education, construction, roads, transparent, capital, design, trade. It goes on and on. So, and none of this is introduced into LiquidLands, but as Dave mentioned, that's the idea, but it's going to be scaled. So you could kind of, it's like built-in hype, but from the past, which is now being built on in the future, because you could kind of predict and see what's going to happen at the right time, which then creates a new fold into the strategy. If you could predict what's going to come, but you don't know the timing and how the modern version of it is, you could kind of act properly on behalf of your faction. That's really intriguing to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers there, and I can't wait to build it. To be honest, I'm kind of I've set aside many years to do this now. I'm fortunate. I'm in a space now where I don't want to say I'm at the end of my career, but I've done the other things that I need to do in my career to create the space to do this now. And so that's really the goal, is just to keep building this and to try and do it sensibly. I don't want to just create a lot of assets and spam them onto the blockchain and then we live with a million assets sitting there like some projects at the moment. So everything is, I'm not creating supply constraints for the sake of appeasing collectors, although I know they like supply constraints. I'm creating supply constraints because the game won't work if I create an oversupply of these assets. And so that's why I haven't minted another city since 2018, and there's only 7,000 of them. That's why there's only 120 countries. That's why there's an increasing mint fee for power bricks. Eventually people will stop making them because it doesn't make sense to make them. It makes more sense to buy them on the secondary market. Everything will have a supply constraint in it because I need a game economy to form. And I can't have a game economy form if we're just flooding the game with these assets. And so that's really the goal. And that gets into why I probably won't be introducing an ERC20 token into the game. I know it's very fashionable and, that might work. One day. I think it creates more challenges than benefits at the moment to tokenize your game. We see big guys like Axie struggling with it as well. I think it accelerates your development effort very quickly. You have to suddenly deliver something very fast when you tokenize. Hype grows quickly as soon as you have the token in the game. And the moment that the hype can't deliver the growth anymore and NGU no more, you lose all your players as they start to dump the token. Mm-hmm. So it puts a artificial time dilemma on you, I think, the moment you add a token. Not saying it won't make sense one day to add it, but I feel like you've got to build the game first almost. I think a lot of people try and add the token before they've built the economy in a way. They try to add the token first and then we'll deliver a game afterwards, or we'll give this utility or benefit. Well, I want to try build the utility first, and then we'll see if it makes sense to tokenize it afterwards.
I think that is the smart way and the correct way to do it. Now, as we enter the depths of this bear market, if you look and put charts side by side of every in-game ERC20 token, it's literally just down only. And then when it goes down only, then it makes itself into the headlines and negative press and becomes this negative feedback loop, which you were just discussing.
You lose your players, because if your players are just there for the token, and even those that weren't there just for the token in the beginning, but got the token or got caught up in the token, they're going to leave as soon as that token goes down. They start losing money because of it. So I think it's a tricky thing to do, and you're playing with the emotions of as a game designer, you're always playing with the emotions of your players. But the moment you mix a token into it, I think you start to bring some difficult emotions, which are hard to control and harness in the game.
Keeping the players, maintaining and growing the ecosystem is very important. An interesting dynamic to you, which may prevent the capacity of players in the game, is some of the lost cities of 2018, right? You mentioned that there was 7,000 minted. There could be potentially thousands of those tiles of land lost. Have you thought about how to go about that? Because you have to keep the integrity of the historical significance.
Yeah.
And so
if they lost, they lost.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like if someone's lost London, and I know they haven't, I've seen it move. But if someone's lost a really valuable city, I'll be sad about that, because for me, there's no real way to bring that back into the game. I can't see a way of doing that without breaking the whole ethos of blockchain and these assets, So it won't be the end of the world if a lot of the small cities are lost forever. Most of them are really small. They're literally like a house or two on a street corner, the 1 point locations. And then they go up to, small towns might be 15 to 20 points. And then they go up into city sizes above that. So I really hope the big ones aren't lost and people can still find them, recover them. I know most of the big capital cities are not lost. I think a lot of people still have those. They took better care of them, I think. A couple might be lost. And then, we can, over time, we can introduce some of the other bigger cities that were never minted that are still out there. So there's enough, I think, that we can create a really compelling, interesting game world with what we have. And we've got that limit of 25,000 cities, which we won't exceed no matter what. At the moment, we've only got 7,000. I don't have any plans to mint anymore this year. And if we do mint, I think it would be a really long-term thing. And I think it would be like one a day, one a week, one a month. I don't know, whatever made sense for the game. How fast does the game need to grow? Like, if we've got 1 million players, yes, we need more cities. But like, if we've got the amount of players we've got today, we don't need more cities. And so that's my thinking around it. And I suppose being a benign dictator, in a way, I can make that decision. I'm not constrained by any other financial interests. There's no VCs involved. I don't have to answer to anybody. So I can make that sort of unilateral decision on when it is time to do these things. And for some people that might be slow. I mean, I know we're 4 years down the line. It might be slow for some people, but I'm trying to build something lasting here, and it takes time. It takes time to build these things.
And from a technical perspective, so I have this right. So you have the keys to mint the cities. We're at 7,000, limitations 25,000, and these cities are being minted on the original contract, which then is being wrapped
on the
it's a new one.
New contract. Yeah.
So the old contract is cut. It's done.
Yeah. So the way I've wrapped it, I know wrapping is an important discussion. The cities are wrapped. So I have a utility contract that does that. That has elevated permissions on both contracts, the new and the old. So when an owner upgrades their city, the utility contract wraps the old token to the new contract, like a wrap normally would, and then awards or mints the new token to the owner. Mm-hmm. And so that token then becomes parented by the new contract, like a normal wrap would work. I haven't created the unwrap yet, and I know that's something that is needed for the historical community. So although most people don't want to ever unwrap their tokens, I think they want the right to be able to. They want the ability to do that. So I need to put in place the unwrap function for the contract. But as we were discussing a while back, it's somewhat trickier in a game environment where a city could have game state and a city could be building connections with other cities and doing other things in the game. And so I'm reluctant to create a typical burn to release type unwrap where you take your new token and you say, okay, well, I'll burn this now and I get the old token back and now I've unwrapped. That's how you would typically do it. That would be the pure sort of way to do it. And I think that could create challenges because I don't want part of the game world sort of destroyed in a way just because someone has decided to get their old token back. And so I'm thinking of ways to do it. And I think I might use some kind of lock function or stake type function where you take your new token, you stake it or lock it to release the old token and you get that old token back. And then if you want the new token again, you put the old token back in and it releases the other one. You can keep doing that as much as you want, but neither are destroyed. And neither can be out in the wild at the same time. You know, they all have to, you can only be owned by one owner and they'll just be owned by the staking contracts or the new contracts. So that's really the idea around that. So there's about 7,000 of those tokens. So when they get upgraded, they basically get minted to the new contract. They form a portion of that 25,000. And so what it means is we could create, what is it? Another sort of 10,000 plus whatever we want to, so 10, 15, 16, 17,000, something like that.
That's quite interesting. When you're discussing that, my thought was like having some sort of time lock where if somebody wants to remove the ERC20 token, maybe there's like a 7-day withdrawal, kind of like what you see with layer 2s, because then it could give warning to the players to then strategize around that. Maybe you add some sort of lore dynamic where the city's going under, it's being taken over and it disappears or something like that. But what you're talking about, the preservation of the original token is very, very important. And the idea of not having the original token wrapped was kind of the downfall of etherization, and a handful of the other ones who maybe they were just too early to this wrapping dynamic and the historical significance. But that's what's really important.
What people forget is we look at things with hindsight. We discuss these things and we storm about them, and then we norm and we come up with a solution. We go, okay, this is how it should be. Forgetting that like some people had to come up with solutions a year or two ago and didn't have the privilege of that discussion, and they had to come up with solutions. And so I think we should, I think we've done it right, but I know other people may have taken a different road. We should cut them some slack because there's no way to know. We're trying to figure this stuff out. I mean, when I wrote these original contracts, ERC721 didn't exist. And so you're trying to figure these things out, and you're trying to do the best you can. And most people, I think most founders from the past have taken a pretty honest approach to it. But you got to figure it out, and then you've got to try and fix whatever you do afterwards. Like we took a different approach with countries, which I regret now, but 4 years ago we didn't really know. And so 4 years ago with countries, we used less of a market mechanism. So with cities, it's like a free market. You can buy, sell, delist. It's like it is today. With countries, we had this sort of auto-increasing mechanism. So you would buy a country, its price would increase, and you couldn't delist it. But you could decrease the price as well after a day or so. So it was a market. You weren't forced to always go up in price. You could go down in price, but you couldn't take it off the market, which I regret now because I think that would have made it a lot better. And so that one we haven't been able to wrap like we wrap cities. And so that's a lot more complicated on how do we release those old tokens if we need to. If we want to create some kind of unwrap for it, how do we do it? That's something I'm still thinking about. I think cities is a lot easier. We can sort of lock them, unlock them, and have a very good mechanism for that. But at the same time, you got to, that's why I'm not rushing it. You know, I don't want to go and put an unwrap functioning now and then everybody comes back to me and like another year's time and go, why did you do it this way? You should have done it that way. You know, so I'm kind of like just holding off on the, let's say, the historic side of cities, because I know some people want to view the project as historic, and I suppose it is. For me, it's not historic, it's current. You know, for me, it's like it was current then, it's current now. I understand I have to do the right things for the historic community as well, but I don't see it as like this relic, you know. I see it as my baby that I'm still building, you know. I see it as still like a child, not an old person, you know. So I'm not going to rush the unwrap stuff. I'll do it, and I'll hopefully do it right for everybody. That makes sense and preserves game state and gives people access to the old tokens if they want to.
Right, especially since you've kept it live this entire time. The heartbeat never stopped. So it never had that like unearthing process, which you saw with Mooncats and a handful of these other ones, which kind of gives more history and lore to it, right? The great pump and all the hype, and everyone's excited about it. No one has any idea what's really going on. But before we get out of here, just one final question in terms of like the historical side. All of these, the different creators have different thoughts about this resurgence in their project. From you as a creator who never let the project die, but now it has a resurgence and you have a second life, what kind of meaning does that feel to you? Does it feel like you've had a second chance? Does it feel that just because of the newfound interest in NFTs has gave more livelihood? What's gone through your mind throughout the entire process?
Totally, yes. I would say it's allowed me a second chance to build what I wanted to build the first time around. When I stopped developing, I mean, and when I say stop developing, I mean, I must have put in well over a year of like 16-hour days on the first project. It was a substantial build. I mean, there was a lot of code there. It wasn't just like an NFT project, some art. There was a lot of stuff going on there. And so it was like kind of heartbreaking to go like, I thought it failed at the time. Like it didn't work. NFTs are dead. This whole dream of the blockchain is not materialized. Everybody's left. And it was like, a ghost town. Now it's given me the opportunity to reboot, build what I wanted to build, but come into it with complete eyes wide open. Like I've spent the last couple of years getting myself into a position where I can sustain a build now. So I don't care. Like, I don't care that we're in another crypto winter. I've looked at this chart today. It doesn't look great. It makes no difference to me. I don't have to pay any salaries. I'm here to develop. I've got a vision for the game, and that's what I'm going to build. So I've created this structure to be able to do that. And that's taken a few years of preparation. Bitcoin can go to $2,000. Ethereum can go to $100. It's going to make no difference to me. Everybody's going to hurt. I will hurt in my savings because I save a lot in crypto as well. But it's not going to make any difference to my development. And so I like this resurgence that we've had from the last year. It's given me an opportunity to redo everything from the ground up the way I should have done it the first time. And it's given me an appreciation that we might have another winter for the next year or two. And so I didn't start this development a year ago just thinking, oh, well, it's all over. NFTs are back. It's going to be great. I actually thought this is another hype cycle. I thought it's not sustainable. It's going to burst again. And so I went into this build kind of, I want to say, totally expecting what's happening now. And that's why I think I'm in a better place and I'm not sort of shocked by it. I'm just going to develop through it, to be honest. I take some inspiration out of Axie and those guys. They built through the last winter and they were miles ahead of everybody come the resurgence, And so who says maybe we don't go into another crypto winter? Maybe we're fine. Maybe it just keeps going now. But if we do, I've learned my lesson. I'm just going to keep rebuilding.
That's important time now. Double down on your beliefs and not stare at the charts. Find yourself building. I like to build socially. Dave and a lot of people that are the devs choose to build technically, but there's a lot of opportunities to build out there. So yeah, that's the words of advice from veterans who have been through this before. But yeah, I'm definitely a player of this game now that I completely understand it. I will definitely not attack Pause. If you're listening, sorry, Pause. First time I played, she DM'd me in the Mooncats Discord or messaged me that accidentally attacked her. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen, and we'll build some factions. So, Dave, thank you for this, for the wonderful insight. Quite a unique dynamic, but I think you're taking the right approaches, and maybe a year from now when we do this again, we can retroactively decide if everything that we did and acted on was right or wrong.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.